Philadelphia's final preseason game might not have looked like much, we actually learned a ton about who won a starting roster spot and who remains on the bubble, with a couple of these bubble players making some impressive plays on Friday night versus the Jets. Plus, John Metchie's excellent debut, and why Tanner McKee's injury might be worse than we thought. I'm Thomas Mott, this is the Thomas Mott Show. Just because it was a third and final preseason game doesn't mean the Birds' backups didn't come to play. Philadelphia held off the late charge by the Jets en route to a 19-17 win. But it turns out the bigger storylines might have actually happened before the game even started. Also, the jersey winner is announced at the end of today's video, so stay tuned until the end. But make sure to drop a like and leave a comment down below because Gamechangers, the makers of these awesome t-shirts, have a brand new Eagles drop that happened, I think, a couple of days ago. And they've given me 3 new $50 gift cards to give away to 3 of my subscribers. So you want to win the t-shirts or check them out, link down below, and drop a comment to make sure you've entered. Now, the big storyline pregame was who ended up actually not dressing and instead going through a little padless warm-up because if you were not on the field in the third preseason game, you likely have a spot on the roster or at least won a starting job. Or I guess you're injured. And there were a couple of very interesting players in t-shirts on Friday night, including Sidney Brown, Adoree Jackson, Jahad Campbell, Matt Pryor, Josh Uche, and A.J. Dillon. The most interesting names there being first Adoree Jackson, who now officially has locked down the cornerback 2 starting job, but also Jahad Campbell, who unlike Jeremiah Trotter Jr. did not play in this game and is officially, I think, the starting linebacker for Week 1 versus the Cowboys. And it's not like it's a massive surprise that Jahad Campbell beat out Jeremiah Trotter Jr., at least according to the depth chart last night. However, Trotter Jr., as we've been saying, has had a very good training camp. This was a close battle, but in the end, the athleticism, the playmaking ability, and the fact they love Jahad Campbell, he wins in the end. He will start Week 1 versus the Dallas Cowboys less than 2 weeks from today. Also, very notable pregame was how about A.J. Brown running routes for what I believe is the first time on camera in over 18 days, as we have seen Brown run at practice the past few days, but not cut on that or run around with actual routes because the injured hamstring, as they've been saying, is a little bit of a problem. Although John Clark added more good news saying, quote, "It's my understanding the Eagles have been cautious with some of their players, trying to make sure they are ready to start practicing this coming week when they begin preparations for the season opener." And it sounded like Nick Sirianni, at least post-game, tended to agree.
Yeah, again, just play a Thursday night game coming up here in 2 weeks, a little less than 2 weeks. So guys that had a bunch of reps and we felt were where we wanted them to be. That's what we decided.
If John Clark is right, then I think we could see A.J. Brown practice as soon as Monday or Tuesday of next week. Now, he could have been referring to other players, but the quote tweet was above A.J. Brown running routes, and so all the A.J. Brown hamstring drama, it could come to an end, hopefully in a couple of days. Now, staying with wide receivers, and how about the Birds' newest weapon, John Metchie, not only running routes and warmups and looking good, but playing the first 2 drives on offense versus the Jets and coming up with his first catch, literally the first throw of the game for 14 yards. Metchie also had his man beat on another route later in the same drive, but Kyle McCord sadly overthrew him. Either way, it's a very small sample size, but they clearly wanted to get John Metchie on the football field and kind of work through what he's learned in the playbook the past, 48 hours, and he said post-game he feels a lot more comfortable, and Friday night was a big part in doing that.
Felt good. Start the game off the right way. Start fast. It's a great way to start with a new offense, you know.
How far do you feel like you've come, and how far do you still have to go to learn this playbook?
I think it's just repetition, you know. I've been here for, 48 hours? It's just repetition.
Moving on to another player who actually played on Friday night that I was kind of surprised by, and how about edge rusher Azeez Ojulari, who I thought had played his way onto a guaranteed roster spot the past 2 weeks of training camp, but I'd argue playing in Friday's season finale was not exactly a good sign, especially with Patrick Johnson once again adding to his preseason Hall of Fame record with yet another sack. I think Ojulari gets in due to the depth they wanted edge, plus, Nolan Smith did play a third preseason game last year, and he made the roster, so I wouldn't worry too much about Ojulari being out there, but the fact he was on the field is notable, so keep an eye on him come Tuesday. Honestly, when talking about edge rushers, I'm more bummed that late-round draft pick Antwaun Powell-Ryland got this awesome strip sack versus the Jets because I wish he could have showcased that a lot earlier in training camp.
I think you saw that on his college tape. He had a lot of production and pressuring the quarterback, and we were able to see that tonight. Big time, had some good pressures, had that good strip. We did a good job of scooping that ball up because it looked like an incomplete pass. So good, smart situational football by our guys, and that's what they practice in practice where they scoop all the loose balls. So Antwaun, great rush, and good job by Max scooping that up.
The Antwaun Powell-Ryland we saw in the second half versus the Jets is kind of what we were promised, after the NFL draft when it was like a ton of sacks in college. He is going to make some noise in training camp. He just basically didn't do that. So probably too little too late for him to make the final 53. he is definitely going to be a practice squad guy, and hopefully the Jets game is kind of his first, figure it out moment and start to rise in the National Football League, and maybe next year he could do something. And that was sort of the theme of the entire evening. Eagle players who made plays tonight but are on the roster bubble and likely will be cut on Tuesday. For example, Perry Nickerson, who I thought looked better than Jacorian Bennett all night long, came up with the first big turnover for the defense. He's been scrappy, he's impressive, he's a veteran. I'm just not sure there's room for him on the roster. Sirianni did admit after the game that a vet like Perry is making things very difficult in terms of cuts in the cornerback room.
He's a guy that guys love being around, good teammate, played a lot of football, and just always appreciative of him being on this football team, just with everything he brings.
The same, though, sadly, can't be said for safety Lewis Cine, who gathered his own interception in the third quarter, but this is the first time we've mentioned Lewis Cine all summer long, and so very unlikely he makes the roster because he's been hurt and not that impressive. However, back on offense, the standout receiver of the night was another unlikely guy to actually survive cuts, and wide receiver Terrace Marshall Jr., who I thought was in line to actually win a job early in training camp until Darius Cooper, who played very limited snaps last night, which tells you he's making the roster, had a breakout last couple of weeks, especially at training camp for the Birds. Marshall caught a game-high 5 balls for 51 yards and was a constant threat on the outside whenever Kyle McCord could find him. More on Kyle McCord, though, in a second. Also, can we get a quick shout-out to Jake the Make Elliott? How about him going 4 for 4 on field goals on Friday from 23 yards, 45 yards, 51, and 53? Man, if he's 100% healthy and back to his old Jake the Make ways, talk about a boost for the Birds' ability to score a lot of points on offense. Finally, on the impressive player side of the show, how about the MVP of the evening in running back Montrell Johnson? He carried the ball game-high 15 times for 57 yards and this impressive touchdown on third down. And honestly, he put a lot of good stuff on film, showcasing the burst, the power, and the ability that all the beat writers have been telling us he has. Problem was he got injured during camp, and so it was a limited sample size.
And it felt great. I've been trying out preseason, man. It was my first time, my first NFL touchdown, so it felt great. Today I really focused on just finishing my runs and showing that physical back, and I feel like I did that today.
I don't think Montrell Johnson makes this roster because A.J. Dillon didn't play last night, Will Shipley didn't play last night, obviously Saquon Barkley. They're going to keep 3 running backs as they usually do, but he is definitely going to get a call back to the practice squad. As long as another team doesn't poach him, I think he's going to be somebody Philadelphia tries to kind of mold, especially if A.J. Dillon is a 1-year deal heading into 2026. Now, flying over to the less impressive players on Friday night, and first off, the fact Kyle McCord played the entire game means, I guess, RIP to DTR, who will now likely be cut on Tuesday with Kyle McCord winning the third-string quarterback job. As far as his play, though, it was up and down, once again, throwing a really bad interception and taking a couple of ill-timed sacks. He's obviously a rookie playing alongside third and fourth stringers, so take that into consideration. But there's a reason Philadelphia loves Tanner McKee so darn much, and that's due to the fact that he looks leagues better than guys like McCord.
It was all right, some good, some bad. Obviously, wish I had a few reads back, a few throws back, but then at the same time, I feel like there were some good plays, some good things that I did. Obviously felt like we left some points on the field as an offense, but at the end of the day, made enough plays to win. So, definitely, some positive, but lots to clean up, which is exciting.
Obviously we had he had some good plays, and he had some missed opportunities. So we'll have to watch the tape, but did some nice things. Ran the show well, and played some good situational football that helped us get some points.
Oh, and little news on Tanner McKee here and that injury. Zach Berman mentioned that during the game, quote, McKee hasn't taken his right hand out of his sweatshirt pocket. McKee has a finger injury that kept him out of practice this week. It did not require surgery, but McKee is not using his right hand as he normally would. He's held everything with his left. And that could likely indicate that Tanner McKee's non-surgical throwing hand injury is a little bit more serious than people are leading on. Got to keep an eye on this, especially if he practices next week, but we're less than 2 weeks away from the Dallas Cowboy game. They don't want Kyle McCord to be the backup. At least Sirianni didn't sound like that in the post-game press conference, so let's hope Tanner McKee gets back sooner rather than later, or Dorian Thompson-Robinson, you might have a roster spot.
We'll see. You guys, know he's dealing with a finger, and he's working to get back, and we'll see where he is.
If he's not, are you comfortable with Kyle as the 2?
Yeah, I think, again, like I said, Kyle has done some good things, and I thought he did some good things, played smart situational football today, and I feel good about this roster as a whole and where we are right now, and at all positions.
Also, by the way, NFL insider Albert Breer confirmed on Friday that McKee will draw trade interest from around the National Football League this coming week, although apparently a, quote, pretty strong offer will be needed to even remotely pry him from the Birds' clutches. I still think McKee is going to back up Jalen Hurts this year whenever he's healthy, but I'd love to know which teams are calling the Eagles this week desperate for a quarterback, because he is highly respected around the National Football League. Still, though, I would take a king's ransom for Tanner McKee, and even then, I probably wouldn't trade him just because the security blanket is pretty darn important. Moving on to some other less impressive players on Friday night, I thought Ja'Cory Bennett was fine, but didn't stand out as a real starting cornerback option like I think they wanted him to the past couple of days. He's looked like a backup and honestly not someone who should start versus CeeDee Lamb and George Pickens 11 days from today. The same goes for wide receiver Ainias Smith, who had a couple of catches last night, a couple of pretty bad punt returns, not really waiting for a fair catch and not doing much on that side of the football either. I think he might still make the roster. He's a tough one to go ahead and gauge out because he was a draft pick last season. They poured a lot into Ainias Smith, but if you're hoping for Ainias Smith to kind of break out in a preseason game without Darius Cooper, he didn't really do it on Friday night. In the end, though, the final preseason game, it's always a tough watch for us, the fans. I know a lot of us are looking for these roster bubble guys who can make a play, but it's really not great football because third stringers are playing, fourth stringers are playing, but there were plenty of positives, including Montrell Johnson, Patrick Johnson. I thought Kyle McCord was up and down okay, but I loved what I saw from John Metchie earlier in this game. The question now, though, is how quickly will Philadelphia make roster cuts because the Steelers and Panthers, they played on Thursday night and have already cut people, so you don't have to wait till Tuesday to make those decisions. I expect this weekend to hear some news on who Philadelphia cuts, who they're going to keep. We'll have updates for you guys happening early next week. Be sure to go ahead and subscribe because I'm expecting some surprising cuts and some surprising keeps as well, and so we'll full recap video whenever Philadelphia makes their moves. Finally, the jersey winner, any jersey of your choice, one of the Nike ones on Fanatics.com. The winner of that one was Ryan Graybill8645. So, Ryan, you won. Send me an email down below. It's all linked. You just got to look at my description box. That'll detail what you got to do. Claim your jersey. Tell me the size, which one you want, and I'll send it out as soon as possible. As always, plenty more giveaways happening in the next couple of days and weeks. More tickets, more signed stuff as well. Preseason's over. Now we're looking forward to the Dallas Cowboys and hopefully routing Jerry Jones's team that doesn't want to pay Micah Parsons. It's going to be a very fun next couple of weeks. So hopefully you guys tune in to the show. I'm Thomas Mott, early here on a Saturday morning, getting this out to you. This has been the Thomas Mott Show.